Kia ora tātou. So tonight I want to talk about the right of te reo Māori and the right to te reo Māori in Aotearoa New Zealand. And I want to keep referring to New Zealand as Aotearoa New Zealand because I want you guys to take it away. Because I think it's really, really important. What I want to do is to talk about how Te Taurewhiri is viewing te reo Māori and how we as a staff are working under a very, very committed board towards a vision for Aotearoa and te reo Māori. So first of all, I want to talk about te reo Māori as a right, and then I want to go into the right to enjoy success as Māori because I think the two are tied together. And I want to talk about the status of te reo today, the role of te Taurewhiri, and the vision for te reo Māori. But also, within that, I want to talk about a new approach. I mean, we tend to approach things Māori and promotion and delivery to Māori as a homogenous group located in a certain geography, as it was in the 1940s and 1950s. But since then, Māori people have become a dispersed community. And we kept together, very interestingly, by our cultural connections, whether we're a taurehiri group, whether we can become part of an urban entity such as Ngāti Pōneke, or Kapahaka, or Kohanga Reo, or Kura Kaupapa, Whare Kura Whānau. But it's a very different, I think, society to what it was in the 50s. And the impact of urbanisation now has resulted in a dispersed community, which requires a different kind of delivery model. But I also want to go back to where the right to te reo Māori starts. And really for me it starts at Article 2. Undisturbed possession, Article 2 of the treaty, undisturbed possession of all of our taonga, including te reo Māori, and that was confirmed in 1986 at Waitangi in the te reo Māori claim. Then Article 1, which actively guarantees, it's an active guarantee by the Crown, to things Māori, to our lands, all those types of things. And then the third article, which I think is where I'm starting to move with this particular presentation, which is about the two articles, the rights conferred in Article 1 and Article 2 now becoming an Article 3 issue, where te reo Māori becomes a right of citizenship, not just for Māori, but for everybody. And as I said before, Māori now are predominantly urban. We're a dispersed community. I no longer live in Ngāti Porou, and I love going back, but there are times there when my cousins remind me of why I have moved. Māori have integrated into society, so we're just as likely to be living in Kandala as we are in Crofton Downs or Newtown or wherever else. So what is keeping us together is a cultural networks, whether they be kapahaka, as I said before, groups like Ngāti Pōneke, urban groups, whether it's the Whare Kura or Kura Kaupapa community, but or whether we're part of a taurehiri, which keeps us connected to our tribal runanga. And therefore a new approach is required. I hope you can read this. I want to go and look at UNDRIP now, and where I think the linkages with, and it gives more foundation, I suppose, to the Treaty of Waitangi, which is 13.1. Where, and the ministers have talked about these things too, the right to have of Indigenous people to have their languages, to have their culture, their histories, all those types of things. But the more important one is 13.2, which looks at the mechanism. And it's this mechanism that's been established by Te Whare o Te Reo Mauriora. This is the mechanism we need to look for, but I think one of the things that people tend to forget too is what does this mechanism affect? Where does it take effect? And in this particular article, it looks at the political, the legal, administrative proceedings, and you could take that further into education and into wider society. And I think that's really, really important. So when I look at the government revitalisation mechanism, I think it must consider te reo Māori as a right for all citizens of Aotearoa New Zealand in order for Māori to achieve success as Māori. Because one of the things we've found from sending our children to Kohanga Reo and Kura Kaupapa and Whare Kura is as soon as they're out of that environment, they're no longer supported in their te reo Māori journeys. So if you look at some of the research, for instance, Dr. Henry Rewa-Pautu's research, which was put on the Dean's list at Massey because it was so good, she points out that we need to make the language cool. We need to make it relevant for rangatahi so that they stop seeing te reo Māori as a language they speak either at school or on the marae. It needs to be a language that they speak everywhere. And some of my whanaungas have a big problem with te reo Māori being a right for all New Zealand citizens, because they see that as a ceding of the mana of te reo Māori to Pākehā and to whoever else. And my response to that is always quite simple. I talk about the English, you know, stubborn bunch, the English. You know, for 150 years we've been speaking their language, and we've yet to wrestle the mana of the English language off them. And in fact, the English language has got more mana because more people speak it. And so it stands that if we can have more people speaking our language, then our language should have more mana, right? We should have less trouble fighting with people in the media about the value of our language, the value of tikanga, and it should be easier. So one of the things that we're doing as Te Tautawhiri is we're taking on the promotion of Te Reo Māori. And part of that promotion is about enhancing attitudes. So if you look at this thing, Achieving Success as Māori, which is something that has arisen from Professor Mason Jury, and you look at UNDRIP again, right? There should be no language barriers in our country. There should be no cultural barriers. There should be effective measures to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination. And that, for me, under Article 15.2 says there should be no racism. And no racism means we should be able to speak Māori. Everybody should be able to speak Māori. The language journeys of our children, who we've invested considerable time and resource in, should be supported everywhere. Let's look at Te Reo Māori today, put that in a bit of context. So first of all, only 21% of Māori are self-identified as speaking Te Reo Māori at the last census, and that was down from 23%. 3% of Māori children attend kura or whare kura. 5% attend total immersion school. And guess what? That is the biggest production pipeline for Te Reo Māori speakers. So if you look at that 8% up again of children who are in Māori medium, and you compare that to 21% of Māori who self-identified as speaking Te Reo Māori at the last census, that figure, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to work this out, that figure of 21% is going to fall because the production pipeline is only producing 8%. On top of that, only 22% of compulsory education students in compulsory education have access to Te Reo Māori at school, and that's a figure that's been given to us by the Education Department. Now, why is that important? Is because 92% of Māori children are actually in mainstream school, and only 22% of that population is having their Māori language journey supported as having access to Te Reo Māori at school. And I know the Minister says it's a hard ask because the teachers, we require more teachers, but I think, you know, you build the house and the people will come. The Te Whare o Te Reo Māori Ora is there, and it's our role to ensure that it stands strong and that it's filled with people who can speak Māori. Now, if you look at the wider population, 0.6% of non-Māori speak Te Reo Māori. However, here's the good news, people, is that from our data sources, the biggest one being the New Zealand Attitudes and Values Survey run by Chris Sibley at Auckland University, 40% of the population in that survey, and there are 15,000 respondents in that survey, 40% of that survey support Te Reo Māori at schools. So while the numbers are falling, I think the positive is that the number of people who actually support Te Reo Māori is increasing. I want to look at the role of the Tautawhiri now, the Māori Language Commission, and this is our vision statement, which I fully support. In fact, I would change it if I had the chance to, and it would be Kia kōrero Māori a Aotearoa whānui, that New Zealand is a Māori-speaking nation. That would be my vision statement. Wouldn't muck around because I think we think too small, and so we get small results. And we mightn't achieve the whole of our aspirations, but I've always believed in, you know, aiming for the moon so I can get the top of the mountains. I think is a really, really important thing to do. So with that in mind, I'd like to move on to how we're breaking this particular vision statement down. So the first thing is he kaha te mano te reo Māori. So this whole role has been broken down into this thing called he kaha, or strength. He kaha te mano te reo Māori, that the mana of the language will be strong. And that's through promotion. It's also through working with and supporting agencies to engage more with the Māori language strategy. He kaha te ki te kōrero, that's about producing resources that are actually helpful to people, that utilise the latest technology, that utilise learner profiles that help us to shape those things and to make them more relevant to the needs of learners, but most of all to make the reo more accessible, because what we're finding is everywhere we go is that it's really, really hard to learn. and we want to make that easier. That's a key thing for us, making the language more accessible. The fourth one, he kaha te taurewhiri te reo Māori, it's about te taurewhiri becoming stronger as an organisation, becoming a safe pair of hands for te reo Māori, becoming a good partner for the newly established te Mātāwai, and being a helpful and meaningful addition to, or part of the landscape, of the te reo Māori landscape. So a couple of things that are happening at the moment. The Minister referred to the Crown iwi partnership, or Crown Māori partnership, and so two strategies, complementary strategies. The first one, the Mahi Māori, which is the Māori strategy. The second one, the Mahi Korona, the one that we're responsible for coordinating the implementation of. And these things haven't been sorted yet. But if I had my way, we'd be thinking big and being brave. And it wouldn't be just that the language is widespread, it would be that that Aotearoa, New Zealand, becomes a Māori speaking country. I think the second thing is to keep it simple. We have a tendency as government agencies to make everything really complicated. It looks really flash, but nobody knows what it's about. And that's a big worry for me. I think we've got to keep it simple. We've got to ensure that it resonates with everybody. And it's also about making the language accessible. If nobody can learn it, it's a waste of time promoting it. If the resources are rubbish, it's a waste of time. If people are just getting the Māori Language Week posters and throwing them in the rubbish or wrapping up their fish and chips, well, it's a bloody waste of time apart from being a good wrapper for the rubbish. And being inclusive, it's that thing about, we tend to be pretty staunch Māori about our language. It's ours and nobody else's. And we're a bit worried about, teaching it to other people. Although we are very welcoming of people from overseas who have learnt the language and put it up on Facebook and stuff, and we can't wait to see them here and really pat them on the back. But that inclusivity also needs to be extended to the people who live in this country. Because for me, it's no longer about Māori being able to save the language, because that's already going down the Googler. And if you were a salesperson, and I was the CEO of a sales agency at one stage, and if I had said to the sales reps, you can only sell this thing to 15% of the client base, they would have said to me, nah bro, not interested. So it's really, really important, I think, to ensure that the rest of New Zealand is included in the revitalisation of the language. So here we go again. I've jumped ahead. Aotearoa New Zealand is a te reo speaking nation. These are the way I would, this is the ultimate vision I would want for Aotearoa. That Aotearoa New Zealand is a te reo Māori speaking nation. And secondly, all learners have access to te reo Māori, not just 22%, all of them. And not just in the compulsory sector either, in ECE, primary, secondary and in tertiary. That the learning and speaking takes priority over correctness, right? One of the barriers that we've identified in the research is that people are afraid to learn because they're worried about being judged and told they suck. In fact, I had one of our staff members' daughters came in and she just said to me, Matua, since when did te reo Māori become a competition? Since when am I better than them and that one's better than me? Isn't it just, can't we just call it all Māori? Right? Is it, why do I have to learn all these flash words? And if I don't know what a word means, does it mean I can't speak Māori? Well, no, it doesn't, right? So the learning and speaking takes priority for me over being really, really correct. So part of learning is making mistakes. You'll get it wrong, I remember my mother correcting me. My kids come home and they go, te tai o te kai, when they really should be saying he kai maku, right? Because I'd love to eat them, but it's not right. But he kai maku is quite clear to me. Can I have some food? But they will make these mistakes, and I could jump on them, or I could just lovingly correct them. And I think that's the approach we've got to take: is to be kind and to look after people on their language journey, so they're not scared off. So they decide, no, I'm not learning anymore because there are too many taniwhai out there waiting to jump on me. Okay. And most of all for me, te reo Māori has to be owned by all New Zealanders. That's the citizenship I'm talking about. Because there is no other language in this country that marks this country out as different from any other. And if te reo Māori dies here, there's no other place. We can't go to Samoa and ask them for a bag. They've got their own language, right? Can't go to the Cook Islands either because that's slightly different. One person actually asked me one time, hey, are you a New Zealand Māori or a real Māori? And I said, I'm a real Māori. So I just want to finish by saying that te reo Māori should be a right of all New Zealanders, because in order for Māori to enjoy success as Māori, everybody and everything. Te reo Māori has to be everywhere. It can't be in the ghettos. I call them, some people call them Māori language domains, and that's true because te reo Māori has been spoken there, but they largely now have become schools and on the marae. We need to take te reo out of those areas and extend them into wider society. So I want to finish off by saying he reo e kōrero ti ana, he reo e ora ana. The spoken language is a living language. Ngā mihi nui tēnā koutou.